These students, what life is in other countries, Quebec and Fort Lauderdale. And Tony in his own way taught, without knowing more than 6 words of French, what French immersion meant in restaurants and bars that were open until, I don't know, past this, when the streetlights went on in Toronto. And Tony made it meaningful. Like that story was actually, as I was running after I ran to the station to pick up the refreshments for the thirsty football players on the bus back from Fort Lauderdale, Tony would take his leadership and show how each of these football players could recycle each one of these beer cans on their forehead, and leaving a nice neat pile of crushed beer cans on the floor to be recycled. So everywhere Tony goes, he tries to do his bit. But it's Tony's genuine approach to everything he does that puts him in good company, and you've seen it at Queen's, and the ultimate end to that is the wife he's sitting next to tonight, Andrea, and the people around us tonight, especially friends of Butch and Terry's, Bruce and Judy, who had us over last night, people who in one day gave Misha more of a vacation in Guelph than my mother has in Toronto for 2 weeks. So it's been a long, fun ride so far, and I look forward to many years. And Tony too is a family man, and he's looking forward to the new life and family with Andrea. And I think if you've seen Tony in a bathing suit lately, you might think that he's looking forward to fatherhood a little more than Andrea is. So before I raise a toast to Tony, I'll represent some of the homeland, and from his Slovenian friends, we raise a toast. Za moje slovenski prijatelje, na zdravie. And I raise a toast to Tony and Andrea. For good times, for bad times. And that we meet again to do this all over, but in reunion.
My wife's been up here ahead of me, so she said everything that I was supposed to say. But I was at a wedding about a year ago with some friends of ours, and the father of the bride had done all this research and went to the library and everything else, and he found out that all the functions of the father was optional. First today we had not only great weather, beautiful service at the church, and great meal from the fireside group of Dutch Church, and we'd like to thank them all to start with. Second of all, I'd like to thank my wife, Teresa. She worked very hard on this. I thought she was going to end up on Delhi Street for a while. But anyway, she's done a lot of effort. Tony's mom and dad have done a lot. Tony Sr. and Vi, who's sitting right here with us, and we all know. And Tony's sister Carol. A lot of work down at their home and also at our home the other night for rehearsal and everything else. Thank you very much, Carol. There's a lot of people that do a lot of things that you can't single them all out. Showers and stags and parties and family get-togethers and everything else. But Jamie started on some of the reminiscing of the family between he and Andrea. I'd like to carry that just a wee bit further. There's 2 or 3 people that I'd like to mention specifically because of over the years they've been not only great help to us, but an inspiration for Andrea. And the first one is Pat Robinson. And and Pat is sitting just over here. We know her as Nana. Thank you, dear. But for all the years when the kids were extremely young and Therese went back to work, and Nana and her husband did all her babysitting for us, and the kids all loved her and still do, and real nice to see you, Nana. Thanks. The second one, everybody knows about Paula, but all these years from kindergarten and all the way through, she's been a great friend to Andrea's, and appreciate everything that she's done for us. She took Andrea out of the doldrums. We call it the doldrums because just prior to high school, Andrea was kind of quiet and timid and everything else. Then she met Paula. Thanks, dear. Okay. Then after high school, it was one of our next door neighbors, Anita. Where are you sitting, Jeff? Very special to Andrea. Okay. Anita is the only one that can take Andrea to introduce her to Queens, okay, and turn the wrong way on the 401. If you want to hear that story, you talk to Anita afterwards. But Anita decided one day she was going to jump in the car and take Andrea with her and take her for a tour of Queens University and everything else. And she's been a great inspiration for Andrea for all these years. Thanks, Anita. And of course, the other one is Judy Folkert. And Judy, we've known Judy Bruce for 16 years or better. Judy has been a second mother for Andrea and a leader for my wife, Teresa. She's running around with parties and a very successful mixed buck and doe party for the kids, and great contribution. She made all the flowers for the tables, and you'd almost think it was her daughter that was getting married. But Jude is that type of person, and we thank you very much, Jude. And then I'd like to welcome Tony into our family. It doesn't seem like a welcome because he has been part of us for 5 years or whatever. We kind of take him for granted, coming and going and everything else. But it's nice to welcome Tony and his family. We're both Andrea and Tony are very fortunate to be part of large families, and they do teach us a lot of things that are unrecognized, and one of them is true value, and we appreciate it. There were a couple indications, and I thought I should just pass this on. There were a couple indications that, you know, when Tony was hanging around our place a little bit, a few weekends and stuff, that there were a couple of male, basically, indications that he was going to make it in his family. You know, most of us, in our age group anyway, like to get up on Sunday morning and maybe just scoot up and get a newspaper and read the paper. Well, Tony started doing that, and then eventually, because Tony and I both have a liking for baking, and Isabel's and everybody else's, but Tim Hortons is pretty good too. So then he used to start, and he'd run up, because he's an early riser, and I've always been a late riser, and probably still will be. But he'd run up, get the donuts and the paper, and then a few weeks pass, and all of a sudden now he's not only going up to get the donuts, he's getting 2 papers. He gets both the Star and the Sun Sunday morning. You know. So there was that type of indication that he was going to make it in this family. And then probably second to that was the fact that they had their engagement, and their engagement was to them announced at Raven Lake. And of course they come back to our place on whatever it was, Sunday afternoon or whatever. One of my sisters is there, and of course they're all happy and elated and everything. And they haven't said a word. We're sitting around like most of us males would, but we sitting around watching the baseball at the World Series. Now the Yankee people here won't appreciate that, but this year it was Toronto we were watching. So we're sitting there and we're watching the World Series, and they don't say one word until after the World Series game is over. And then they make the announcement to us they're getting married. That was the other indication. We knew it was Anyway, thanks for everything. Thank Tony's mom and dad also for helping out in the wedding. It's just been a beautiful day. And I'd like to congratulate Tony and Andrea, Mr. and Mrs. Seljack again. And have a great evening. We're going to have a little dance, a little everything going yet. Let's do it.